I'll be very clear. We ask for the return of Saint Dinah. The elders who sat across from the Archduke spoke. The Archduke was very surprised when he heard all this, and said he had no idea what they were talking about. Archduke Devon, didn't you take the saint from the temple? All right. Anyway, this bratless one is a candidate for sainthood, and her place is in the temple, said one of the elders. He also said that because of the Archduke, they were facing a lot of difficulties. He didn't know how Devon knew about this girl, but to only buy an awakened saint for only 1 million? It was very little. If he brought her back soon, no one would know about it. At that suddenly the Archduke got to his feet and shoved one of the elders. Mr. Pedrick asked, how dare he do that in the temple? Devon said that he could no longer do that. Thereupon he began to draw his sword and said, you ask what I'm doing here? The Archduke said that he was protecting his daughter. At that moment, one of the elders asked how dare he speak so recklessly about her. Devon asked him if he hoped to survive after saying that. The elder began to tell the Archduke to come to his senses, because they are God's messengers, and his actions are tantamount to declaring war on their temple. The Archduke said that perhaps he was mistaken. When the elder heard this, he began to say that Devon was very wise, but at that moment he cut off his hand. Mr. Pedrick did not notice it at once, but then he felt a sharp pain in the place where his hand was no longer there. And at that moment the Archduke said that perhaps he should have done it from the beginning. Then he turned to the other elders and told them to listen carefully. Not Dinah but Esther, first of all. She is my daughter, not a saint, he said. If you say one more word about her I will declare war, said the Archduke. At this moment in the manor, a maid ran after the girl and started calling her name. Lady Esther! She then ran up close to the girl and told her that she had to go back because it was getting cold. Mistress said she was on her way. The girl was very beautiful. Some time before, Lady Lavienne and her attendant had come to the dungeon. One of the elders said that he could not believe that the Holy One had come to them again. Then he asked when she would stop praying. The girl said he could not refuse even because he had become a saint. Besides, this child is her precious friend. After that they went on, and the elder said that she was a very kind person even for a monster like that girl. After this they came to the grate behind which girl was sitting, and Lady Lavienne said, here I am, Dinah. How are you doing? At that moment the elder stood and thought to make the girl grateful. Lavienne came closer to the girl and said that she had a lot of work to do these days and her strength was dwindling. That's why she needs Dinah's help. The girl then shifted her gaze to the vase, from which a bright light was emanating, and she turned to the girl, saying that she was so bad, because the number is much lower than it was last time. So Lavienne asked if the girl didn't want to get her in trouble, and asked if she could cut deeper this time. At this point her attendant turned to her and told her to let him do it, in order not to stain her sacred hands. Lady Lavienne told Khalid that she would be only too glad if he would do everything himself. At that moment the girl thought how he was able to do that to her. Lavienne moved farther away from them and told him to pack everything properly, because more was needed this time. So Khalid drew his holy sword, filled with the blessing of the goddess, and cut the girl's hand. She thought that she no longer felt the pain, and she was tired of it. The guy walked over to the girl and collected her blood, then told Mistress it was ready, handing her the jar. Afterward, Lavienne drank the contents of the jar and said that it was expected that Diane had very powerful strength. Mistress asked if the girl thought things were unfair and that she was unhappy here. Whom asked if Diane would like to go down to the dungeon every day and drink her blood. This was all happening because the girl took what was hers, just because she dared to be born into this world. Why not pray if it is so unfair? I don't know if all your sins will be forgiven, said Lavienne. But then suddenly the girl felt very sick, and her eyes began to close. Before she passed out, she heard Mistress's voice telling her to take care of herself and that she would come back. Austin's empire is a country where saint and emperor have equal power under the goddess. Before the empire was blessed, the world was going through an era of destruction. There was a time when epidemics were rampant, monsters wreaked havoc on the earth, and the streets were strewn with corpses. Hope was fading with each passing day. In time, however, the goddess Espitos descended on the land where there was no hope. So let us, yelled the people, not to lose hope, for the light illuminates their way. Thanks to the goddess, the empire was able to triumph over darkness, and so began the Age of Light, which has lasted for over 100 years. The saved empire entered the Golden Age, building temples and worshipping the holy sent-down goddess. It also enjoyed a peace that would never end. Rejoiced except for one person. That girl was Diane. Once in the dungeon, the maids came to her that it was time for her to eat. One of the girls was shocked, not understanding why she was tied up. The girl explained to Annie, the newbie maid, that this was not a human, but a monster, and it was her own fault for becoming one. But Annie still wondered how she was tied, because there was only a bright light next to her hands. But the other ruddy one told her to be quiet, and to just squeeze her tongue so she wouldn't hurt herself. And after that pour soup down her throat. But then suddenly Diane began to stare intently at the new girl, and with a forceful thought told her to release her. At this point, Annie started walking towards her, and the girl was saying that was right, and let her come over. As the maid approached, she began to remove the bandage from her mouth. The other maid was very surprised, and asked what she was doing. And then suddenly, when the bandage was gone, Annie finally woke up, and did not realize where she was or what was happening. Diane told the girl she was good, and thanked her. At that moment the maid started to